As the principal author of the CDUA, you did extensive research on the controversy over the proposal.
My focus wasn't on the controversy. My focus was on the facts, and I tried to draw them together as best as I could to present a balanced assessment that could go before first the department and then the board for consideration.
So you did do some research on the controversy?
We did not do primary research. We weren't out there looking at new things. We were reviewing all of the reports and plans that we could, trying to draw together information from that.
Thank you. And were you aware that NASA completed the first ever federal EIS conducted on Mauna Kea astronomical facilities development?
That NASA completed?
That NASA had completed the first ever federal EIS on Mauna Kea.
Not specifically.
Thank you. And were you aware that this EIS concluded the cumulative impact of the past, present, and reasonably foreseeable astronomy developments have resulted in significant adverse and substantial impacts to the cultural and natural resources?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I lost you halfway through there.
Just repeat the question, please. Do not answer.
Were you aware that this EIS concluded the cumulative impact of the past, present, and reasonably foreseeable astronomy developments have resulted in significant adverse and substantial impacts to the cultural and natural resources of Mauna Kea? And that was NASA Federal Environmental Impact Statement and OHA versus Sean O'Keefe, Civil Number 02-00227, July 15th of 2003.
Mr. Sanderson?
Objection. The cross-examiner is testifying and the question is beyond the scope of Mr. White's direct.
I'm going to allow this question. It goes to the basis of his knowledge, and therefore it's challengeable as to his direct testimony.
Thank you.
Please answer if you are able.
Sure. As what we used as our principal source for the environmental impact statement
Wait,
was
Mr. White. Sir, just a minute. The question is, are you aware of what she described? That's your question.
I already said that I was not familiar with that document.
Thank you.
On page 13, you describe proposed noise mitigation at the site for operational noise. How about construction, vehicular noise, construction noise, excavation noise, concrete pouring noise, etc.?
When you say what about it, what specifically would you like me to address?
Well, what are the mitigations?
To the best of my knowledge, in terms of the construction noise, there are State Department of Health rules that regulate construction noise. There are vehicle noise regulations, again, at the state level. Those are all applicable.
How did you determine what would be acceptable impacts of noise, smell, visual impacts upon the community that I had identified?
We referred to plans, to regulations, to generally accepted standards in terms of trying to arrive at that and looking at the degree of change that would result from this proposed activity.
And on page 12 of your written testimony, you discuss measures being taken to meet criteria number 8, which states the proposed land use will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. Is it true that there have been documented hazardous materials such as hydraulic fluid, mercury, and sewage spilled on the Mauna from the existing telescopes?
There have been, and those were discussed in the application.
Thank you. And in your oral testimony, you mentioned a few times and in your written proper management. So I was wondering if it's true, in your opinion, that the mountain has to date been properly managed.
What I pointed out, I think, in my testimony is that I believe that proper management procedures are now in place. And I said earlier today that it's significantly different than it was in the previous century, if you want me to call it that. But the adoption of the master plan in 2000, and then the comprehensive management plan and all of the sub-plans have just radically altered the way the mountain is managed. And I believe that it's better. There are more management procedures in place on the mountain now than there are in virtually any other conservation district area in the state.
Right, but my question was, up until this point, has the mountain been properly managed?
Well, this point is now 6 years after the adoption of the comprehensive management plan. I think major efforts have been made since that time and before, but more intensively since then to do that. So I have to say, I believe that everybody's doing their very best, given the resources that are available, to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Can't say more than that.
And I don't have transcripts to refer to, so I'm sorry if this had been addressed before, but I couldn't verify that, so I might repeat myself or be repeating someone else. But on page 9 of your written testimony, you state, as documented in the FEIS for the proposed TMT project, as well as table 2-1 of the CDUA, the TMT management plan, the CMP and its subplans, propose mitigation measures and management actions that will prevent substantial adverse impact to the natural resources. So isn't it true that in the FEIS page S8, it specifically states, from a cumulative perspective, the impact of past and present actions on cultural, archaeological, and historic resources is substantial, significant, and adverse. These impacts would continue to be substantial, significant, and adverse with the consideration of the project and other reasonably foreseeable future actions. So isn't it true that the impacts are already substantial, significant, and adverse before the proposed project even begins construction?
I don't have the document in front of me, so I can't confirm that that's the exact wording. I think the point that's being made is...
Excuse me, sir, you've answered the question.
Okay.
Thank you.